Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you game 2 out of 2 games between Ddraig and AmberT in round 3 of the second European tournament. Today we are going to be seeing Pointe, and on the allied side Ddraig is using the 1st Infantry. And on the Axis side AmberT is using the Festung Gross-Paris. So this is a matchup that looks a lot better than the previous one we saw. In the last game, AmberT defeated Ddraig's 16th Luftwaffe with the 15th Infantry Scots, and that was difficult to watch for sure. But hopefully this echoes the last series where we saw Herr Robert choose the 716th against Gonzo in the first game, and then came back in the second game that was absolutely awesome. So that's what I'm hoping for here between Ddraig and AmberT, because the matchup certainly looks to be that way. Now on this map, the 1st Infantry I believe does have a pretty good advantage in the early game. It does have the M4s, it's got fantastic infantry to engage both at longer ranges and at shorter ranges. And those infantry are just better overall than what the Festung can bring, although the Festung does have great infantry selection. The 1st Infantry also moving into the late game does have an abundance of M4s. And those can definitely equal themselves out against the Panthers of the Festung Gross-Paris if they are micro correctly and they get into the right positions. But it's going to be definitely based upon how far up Ddraig can get in phase A and B before phase C comes around, and AmberT is going to have to start pushing back. The other thing that's definitely going to factor into the Pointe map is infantry availability and how both players really work around that. Now on the side of the Festung, the real way to get around a lot of this elite infantry is for fire support. So fire support in terms of IGs, the B2s and the Panzers, assisting like cheap infantry and pushing forwards is definitely going to be the way around it, because it doesn't matter how elite infantry is if it's pinned down, and that's basically what AmberT's got to work with in order to make ground, or at least stop Ddraig making ground in the early game. And IGs are really good against the 1st Infantry if there is not an M4 nearby. So that may be something that AmberT relies upon. Either way, let's have a look at the units that Ddraig has placed down. For the top side, it's going to be some of the assault bazookas, accompanied by some infantry there. Further down, we see the MG. There's going to be a assault leader with the assault bazooka. Then further down we have the M4DD with an assault team, probably assault MG, and then the assault bazookas. And then on the very bottom side we see 2 more units of infantry, assault teams or assault breachers with the leader there and an AT gun. So an M1 gun for the bottom, M4 for the mid, and just bazookas for the top side. The reason I'm pointing those out specifically is because having the AT to deal with the fire support that AmberT brings is going to be pretty important. So covering each of these roads, like this one, this one, this one, and at the very top side, this one. Those are the 4 roads that go across the map, and those are where often the aggression occurs. And you can see that both players have set their vehicles into 4 groups, and that is exactly how it should look. So on this bottom side, AmberT does have the Panzer 35 supporting some Landerschutzen and an IG-18. Further up we see 2 units of Landerschutzen with the Feldgendarmerie and a B2. Then for the main road it's going to be IG-18 with the Panzer 35. We've also got a Pak 38 in there with the Feldgendarmerie and the Landerschutzen. And on the very bottom, or very top side, sorry, it's going to be the SBW 204 having a nice country ride across the coast. Look how beautiful that is. Okay, let's have a look at where these units are exactly going. As to be expected, just following these roads to their defensive positions. I would expect AmberT to be on the defensive early on, but we'll have to wait and see if that remains the case based upon which kills go in whose favours. On the bottom side, that AT gun is in position. Definitely needed to take care of the Panzer 35. The B2, that's going to probably end up bumping into the M4DD, which is not a problem for Ddraig. Ddraig can definitely use this M4 to make a lot of ground through here is going to be using the support of assault MGs and the assault team. So the assault team wants to engage at 100 meter range ideally, but can engage at 200 meter range and be okay. The M4DD though allows this assault team to get aggressive, and that's exactly what I'd expect Ddraig to be doing in the early game. It was actually 2 assault MGs for this bottom side, and now it's going to be assault MG versus Landeschützen. But the IG-18 is here, and we'll start pinning those down and start doing some damage. Panzer 35 is also rolling up down here, and that will be able to open up with its machine gun, which is probably the best part about the Panzer 35. It's 8 HE on its MG. That definitely assists infantry in pinning down enemy forces. So assault MG is definitely taking a beating, does not really want to be remaining in that engagement, and will be backing off. We now see a mortar coming up towards the mid, but here goes the M4, hits the Landeschützen smack bang in the face. They're going to be forced to fall away from that tree line. The assault MG are therefore going to move up, and at that range there's potential for a lot of damage to be done here. 2-star assault MGs also going to be trying to run down the Landeschützen to find the surrender, but won't be able to find it due to the Feldgendarmerie. Now another unit of Landeschützen taking a beating, and whilst AmberT has done damage to the infantry of Ddraig on the bottom side, this M4 is doing a lot more work in the mid here. The assault bazooka is rushing up, B2 is going to be getting behind cover. The B2's only chance really against this M4 is to engage it at like really close range. So that will be something that AmberT will be trying to do at this point in the game. But a generally quite passive start. Ddraig is trying to push quite hard in the mid, but no like significant engagement. It's just a few units versus a few units. We do see a Panzerschreck on the way, and there's also going to be the 2-star Puma coming in. And this 2-star Puma is one unit that can definitely help deal with the M4DDs in the early game. If it is given the extra veterancy to be 3-star, then it's much more likely that the Puma is going to hit first time than the M4 at close range. And that's something that AmberT can try and rely on in order to win these engagements and delete some of these M4s in the early game, because if he can destroy both of the M4s from phase A, that leaves Ddraig very vulnerable actually to a strong phase B from AmberT with the 135 points per minute versus the 100 on the side of Ddraig. Or the assault bazooka there getting absolutely smashed by the B2, taken down to 1 man, the Landeschützen trying to finish him off, but not quite. Mortar's now going to be trying to hit the 3-star Puma. It has been spotted by Ddraig because the assault MG is in this tree line. As the Puma moves behind cover, it does disappear. But now we see the B2 engaging the M4 at close range. If the Puma can come round and assist, this is very dangerous here for Ddraig. He can try and exploit the aim time by dancing backwards and forwards. But you've got to be so damn careful about this Puma. Because if the Puma's like aiming in the right direction already, the aim time won't be that bad. The main reason that coming around the edge of tree lines with an M4 works so well is because the M4 can turn its turret and aim very quickly. Whereas if a unit already has its gun facing the right direction, then that's where the M4 can lose out. Now we see smoke coming down from the Feldgendarmerie, going to block off that engagement. Ddraig's microing this very, very well to not allow the Puma to fire whilst continuing to get the shots onto the B2. So AmberT was forced to go defensive there and get the smoke down. I also like how Ddraig, whilst all that was going on, was hitting both of these units with artillery. Very, very smart to just try and give him that little bit of an extra advantage. But a +1 for Ddraig early on is starting to count up, getting to 200 points, and he is in a pretty good position. He just needs to make sure that he doesn't get caught out by being aggressive onto these particular units. Now the assault team here, it has been found. Going to smoke themselves off because the Panzer 35 would have started tearing into them. That's going to allow the assault team to back off for now, but AmberT has brought in a Pak 38, and That is in a pretty dangerous position actually, unless it shows itself against the M4, which could be the case. AmberT being very indecisive as to where to place that AT gun. Landerschutzen just going to take the shots for the meantime. 81mm mortar, that's going for the kill onto the IG-18. Panzer B2 waiting to engage the M4, but in the meanwhile engaging the assault MG. Nice shot there for the M4 though. Eventually finishes off the B2. Still surprised this AT gun has not unloaded. This is a huge mistake here. Like, allowing the B2 to die because when the Pak-38 wasn't even unloaded is just silly. This is going to be a side shot surely. Oh, it was, but it was just a transmission damage and not a kill. Will the second shot hit the mark? It will. Just before the Pak-38 gets pinned down, the MG-MC was in position to try and assist, but not quite in time. Puma is going to likely take out the Bofors with another direct hit. The LEFH-16 also getting involved. And getting rid of these Bofors is pretty important if he wants to use bombers into the late game, because of course the Festung, they have great ground support and infantry early on, but one thing we did not mention yet is the bombers and how useful they can be to clean up certain units. Like especially something like this M4, if you bomb it and then go aggressive with the Puma for example, that is one way that you can take it out without being punished too badly, unless of course your bomber gets shot down. Which is a problem, of course. Now the Bofors does get forced back by the artillery and the Puma, but the Puma didn't manage to finish things off. Landerschutzen trying to avoid getting surrendered by the assault team. At the moment, Ddraig is kind of in an awkward position because although he does have the +1, not having the M4 leaves his front line very vulnerable to a strong infantry push that is supported by the Puma and the Panzer 35. So we do see another IG-18 coming in, I believe, with another unit of infantry. And those are going to be assisting the units that are already here to possibly make room into these buildings. We also see more infantry heading down to the mid here, and this is going to be pretty important. This definitely needs to be bolstered. This is a place where AmberT could make a lot of ground right now, but he's just got to be very careful of all these assault bazookas that Ddraig has had hanging about. And he's seen them already, so he should know that they are there. It's just a matter of having the Landerschutzen move through the tree lines to make sure that they are cleaned out before something like this Puma and the Panzer 35s continue forwards. The 81mm mortar trying to provide smoke, allow some units to move up. LEFH going to be trying to counter battery, but Ddraig's already got that on the move, so very nice indeed. Now the M2A1 going to be taking the opportunity to fire back at the LEFH. So now we see like a counter battery war going on. See who comes out on top. AmberT, however, going to be moving his artillery piece as well. Trouble is with these artillery pieces is they are very slow, so it's quite likely that an M2A1 howitzer with the 2-star veterancy will be fast enough to eventually find a shot on target. However, so far has not. Landerschutzen coming under fire from the MG-MC, not a place they want to be. That's 16 HE, 450 cals on target. Surprised how long they're lasting. They actually do manage to get into cover as well. IG-18s, they're going to be now opening up onto the 50 cals. They've also started to hit the assault bazooka there. 81mm mortar will be trying to deal with that IG-18. But this 50 cal really needs to be pinned down if the Landerschutzen wants to try and make some ground. Nice kill onto the assault bazooka there is quite significant. These assault bazookas also revealing themselves. That's one annoying thing about the assault bazookas actually on the side of the 1st Infantry is that they do have M1 carbines. So that 200 meter range can end up revealing them against infantry and giving away the game like it has done here. Like Ddraig would have loved to keep those assault bazookas hidden because then any units that get close will get taken out, like the Panzer 35 and the Puma. But in this case, the assault bazooka revealing itself gives away the location to AmberT, and now he's going to have to be more careful about how he utilizes that squad. Assault team though comes up, takes out those Landerschutzen nice and easy with the surrender. +1 still in favour of Ddraig, and we're now into phase B. So not as much ground as I expected to be made so far for Ddraig, but still a +1 and still counting the points up. And every point definitely matters, but M4DD falling into the pack trap once again. We'll want to keep driving forwards if he wants to stay out of line of sight of the Pak 38. And does also manage to find line of sight onto the Panzer 35, so this is a nice position for the M4DD to be in, since it can damage the Landerschutzen, possibly kill the Panzer 35, whilst avoiding being shot at by the Pak 38. Puma may also come around here and try and get a shot, but it has to get very close to find line of sight, so no chance at all there. IG-18 still alive up here, which is quite spectacular since it's been under a lot of mortar fire. But the Panzer 35 eventually goes down, Landerschutzen being pinned. Puma's going to try and assist against the assault team. M5A1 Stuart has come in on the top side here. And that, with its machine guns assisted by the 50 cal, is starting to do a lot of damage to these Landerschutzen squads. Hummel now on the field. Now this Hummel, it does have a lot of damage. 27 HG, 2-star veterancy, very nice indeed. But whether or not it can find the targets it needs to remains to be seen, because ideally a Hummel needs to pay itself off, and it costs 180 points, which is a lot. So it's going to have to like kill off the Bofors, kill off the M2A1s, and it seems as though AmberT is going to be maybe trying to focus on counter battery with it. So it really does need to find those kills in order to be effective in this game. Now Panzer 35, that is going to be forced back by the M7DD. Landerschutzen are pinned on this bottom side. I don't think AmberT is paying attention, so that is a Landerschutzen squad with 10 men going to be surrendered, which is not good at all. SJ7 pack is on its way down here, which can definitely kill off the M7D quite easily, but more infantry is definitely needed now, since the infantry is just being completely removed from this bottom side. 56% territory lead now for Ddraig, and not a single bomber in sight actually, for that matter, considering it's the Festung Gross-Paris. So since the Festung Gross-Paris had their bombers nerfed from 125 points to 150 points, it does definitely seem that it's like personal preference now rather than a necessity to use the bombers. But really nice couple kills here from the M4. Does clean up the Panzer 35 there, kills the artillery piece as well, and also the Puma's gone down in the pass, so that is a very nice bunch of kills for Ddraig, leaving him in a very solid position in the mid. But a 3-star Stück is on the way. IG-18 ends up taking out the M1 gun on the bottom side, so that frees up the Panzer 35 and the SJ7 pack to get involved. SJ7 pack takes out the M7DD as to be expected. M5A1 is on the way, but that SJ7 pack, it needs to get into a better position. If it rolls up the road, it can just sort of watch that road for a very very long range, and will stop like these reinforcements from getting too close. Whereas at the moment, Ddraig's taking advantage of this S307 pack being slightly out of position to get as close as he can, so that he can then exploit the aim time to kill off the S307 pack or the Panzer 35. So nicely done to get this up close and personal, and now probably going to be looking to engage the Panzer 35 whilst out of line of sight of the S307 pack. So this is very smart at the moment. Pak 38 trying to get a shot onto the M4DD. M4DD is going to win out this time around. Stück 3 though, coming around the corner. 2-star Stück. Can it get the job done? Could definitely use that veterancy. The Feldgendarmerie should be moving down with those, but definitely a good chance of a kill here for AmberT. It looks like Ddraig's focus is on this bottom side, where his M5A1 was successful against the Panzer 35, now using the P38 to strafe the SJ7. Transmission damage for that M4 as it continues to fall back has just been managed to be smoked off. So nice play from Ddraig. IG-18s, they're going to be engaging the M5A1. It's only going to take one shot on target for the M5 to take out the IG-18, but IG-18s still working their way through this M5A1, and there is potential for a kill onto that armoured unit with the IGs. So something we might actually see with so much fire coming down onto that Stuart. On the bottom side, Landesschützen have reinforced this SCO-7 pack, but against things like the assault MGs and now a squad of rifles, these Landesschützen probably aren't going to do too well. It's like if the Landesschützen engage the assault leader and the M5A1 decides to come around the corner a little bit further, then they're going to get absolutely melted by the 30 cals that Ddraig has. So it feels as though, so far, the 1st Infantry on this map is having an absolutely fantastic time controlling these close-range engagements. And it's something that Ddraig has been exploiting very much so throughout the game so far. Now pushing up aggressively with the 2-star M20 with 50 cal. Dropping off some recon there to provide information as to what's coming up the road. This M4 probably could use a repair. Transmission damage is really annoying to deal with, especially when it comes to finding yourself ambushed by Pak 38s, because ideally what you want to do is like peek around a corner, and if you get shot at by a Pak 38 you want to reverse quickly. When you have a transmission damage, it just makes it so difficult to get yourself out of trouble quickly enough. Now both of the Landesschützen on the bottom side, not supported by command, were surrendered, so now the M5A1's free to engage the Panzer 35 and will then probably go for the engagement with the SCO-7 pack at close range. IG-18 has been brought in, so that may be able to hold back these units for a little while, but having these units push forwards on this bottom side has given Ddraig the +2. It's now sitting in a very nice position to control this game. As it moves into Phase C, he will have even more M4s at his disposal that he can place at close range behind these trees in order to hold the front line against whatever AmberT can bring. So, something I expect him to exploit. A 251 half-track has been brought in, accompanied by a Flampanzer B2. Now the B2 definitely deals with a Stuart quite well. Also the Flampanzer part with the flamethrower will be able to melt some of this infantry. But the assault leader of course does have 2 bazookas, so that may be a problem on that bottom side. The assault bazookas taking on the ROA once again, revealing themselves. I think honestly with these assault bazookas you do have to be a little bit more careful with how you use them, like make sure that you turn off the M1 carbine. But here comes a bombing strike straight onto the M4DD. It actually pins down the MGMC as well. That's going to allow the Panzer IV-H to push up here and try and find an engagement. That's exactly what AmberT is going to try and do. He needs to get past this assault bazooka before it recovers though, because ideally you want to reveal this and then, well, I guess surrender it before it recovers and actually fires bazookas and causes problems. But this M5 gun, that's recovering. M5A1 has come around the corner as well. Oh, wow. This M5 gun I think is actually auto-aiming at something else, but Ddraig's going to want to manually aim that at the Panzer IV. Surprised it missed at that close range, but I guess the stress is getting to it. This Panzer IV is in trouble. This Feldgendarmerie, I was going to say could use smoke, but has run out. The Panzer IV has just got to find its way back behind cover, otherwise it is going to go down, and go down it does. That was a nice attempt to use the bomber there from AmberT, but just not quite getting the job done. I think it was just one step too far for the Panzer IV, and it seemed as though Ddraig had all of the units to sort of sponge that attack. Nice kill though for the Pak 40 here, does take out the Stuart on this top side. Flampanzer B2 now engaging the assault leader on the bottom side, just accompanied by the IG-18. Back to a +1 for Ddraig, but having sort of stopped this push onto his forces here, I don't think Ddraig's going to be too worried about any aggression from AmberT for a little while, because he's relying on the Stug 3 in Phase B, which is obviously not the best for these close range engagements. Moving into Phase C now. Will we see a Panther on the field? I think it is unlikely. It really depends if that's all he has left, because if he has more Panzer IVs at his disposal, I expect to see those over Panthers in this scenario, because Panthers at close range versus M4s put themselves in an equal playing field, and so do Panzer IVs, so you'd rather pay for the cheaper unit than the more expensive one, and that in this case is the Panzer IVs. We now see off-map coming in for Ddraig. I'm not entirely sure the purpose of that. possibly to pin down any units in his way here, where the M5A1 and the M4DD may get aggressive. But a lovely hit there for the Pak-38. Bails out the MGMC. The Stug 3 does transmission damage the M5A1. Both of those units go down. A couple heavy losses there for Ddraig. Going to prevent him from pushing forwards aggressively for a little while for sure. Hummel trying to counter battery the M2A1 howitzer back here. On the bottom side though, M5 gun finds the shot onto the Flammpanzer B2, and that definitely puts the M5A1 in a nice position to take on the SG07 pack. Much better than it was, because at close range it's only 2 armor. Job done. Machine guns are going to rip through the IG-18. This is a huge opportunity here for Ddraig. If he gets aggressive with the M5A1 and his rifles start running forwards, all of this infantry and reinforcements coming to the bottom side could be absolutely wrecked. AmberT is now bringing in his own off-map. That's going to be going for the rifles here. We can see that the M5 gun was taken out further down, but these rifles, they are not in the best of position right now when this artillery strike comes in. And well, that howitzer was taken out. Nice job there by the Hummel. Hits the mark. Finds a little salient for AmberT. Equalizes things just a little. Now the rocket artillery going to be coming down onto the RO8 and ladder shoots up here, as the Stug 3 does get aggressive. That off-map really nicely hits the mark. It's going to pin down all of these infantry squads. Pins down the M1 gun. Now AmberT can get aggressive with his infantry if they weren't already all pinned down. Surprised to see Kerbs or Ddraig not push any harder than he already has done, but with the arrival of the Pak-40 it does make sense. It's just, I feel like he could have maybe made it up to this tree line before he had to stop. I guess with the focus having to be on the targets elsewhere, especially when an aggressive push coming in from AmberT, does make the difference, and that off-map strike helps pin down the Stug 3. Of course the M1 gun already in a prime position there to get the shots off, and does do so. Stug 3 goes down, removes the backbone of AmberT's push here. Now it's just going to be infantry versus infantry. Landerschutzen looking to surrender those rifles. M4DD really does not have the mobility to help out at the moment due to that transmission damage. And I feel like it's actually very important to fix up transmission damage, just because it is so frustrating to use otherwise. You can see how slowly this M4 is moving. It's literally just the most annoying thing when you're trying to support infantry and poke around the edge of tree lines. And then if you come under fire, like, get back again. Like, it's just annoying. The CGMC, though, does take out the command motorbike, and it seems like the Landerschutzen took out some recon. Assault MG goes down. Just trading backwards and forwards here for AmberT. AmberT realizing he's going to have to get really aggressive, so is starting to do so. 56% territory lead, though, still for Ddraig. AmberT's got a long way to go, and Ddraig's currently sitting towards the 1,500 point mark, so it's just going to be extremely difficult to come back in this position for the Festung, because this was a huge amount of infantry invested here, and I'm sure that AmberT is going to start getting low on infantry shortly. His off-map's also coming under fire from the M4DD, which is not good. So Ddraig managing to sponge this attack, it seems, and that has left him in a very good position for the rest of this game. More infantry is on its way for Ddraig, and honestly, there's not really been any pressure on this top side, so we're starting to see some engagements. Ddraig pinning down these Landerschutzen. Assault bazookas have been found by the Landerschutzen here, but it just seems like Kerbs or Ddraig is pushing his way forwards on this top side. Sort of noticed that he wasn't really contested up there, continuing to put pressure on the bottom side as well. The Stuart has found its way around the corner of this tree line, not in line of sight of the Pak-40, so able to continue its way forwards. Artillery of AmberT is trying to do work, but this Hummel really hasn't been showing up. Maybe it's been doing well to counter battery a little bit, Like, it's taken out the M2A1s, but honestly, on the front line where it matters, there hasn't really been too much assistance from this Hummel throughout the game so far. And meanwhile, AmberT's been losing men all over the shop. You can see that his Landesschützen are very, very low on men. This Landesschützen is probably the only one with a decent amount left. Off-map strike, though, going to come in there. Takes out the Pak 40. Interesting to see those artillery strikes actually doing damage for once. E-38 Lightning comes in with the two 25 HE power bombs, wipes out the Pak 40. It's going to free up the M5A1 on the bottom side. Now, depending on whether or not Ddraig saw the kill pop up on the right side or not, will determine whether or not he gets aggressive, I would assume. Now seeing a Tiger come onto the field, and we're seeing a couple of infantry get very aggressive. These Landesschützen looking to take over these buildings and push into Ddraig here. More infantry on their way. Those are most likely ROA looking for the close range engagement against the rifles. But these rifles, there's just too many of them, and they have significant HE at both short and long range. It's one thing that makes these 12-man rifle squads very, very good, is that they are so damn versatile against enemy infantry. And even better about the 1st Infantry variants is they have 2-star veterancy assisted by command. So that makes them extremely strong and hard to get rid of. Not only because they have a lot of men to begin with, but also because they can do damage to enemy infantry quite easily. So the M5A1 that's going to be moving up, looking for the kill onto this half-track, does find it. M20 also moving up. Panzerschreck is going to want to get into position here. You can see what AmberT's doing. He's trying to keep this Panzerschreck out of line of sight, so that when he runs it towards the tree line, it's not spotted by the half-track or by the M20, sorry, or the M5A1. And then when he gets in there, he gets an ambushing shot, which is nice indeed. Another off-map strike going to be coming in onto AmberT's units. And I questioned the purpose of this off-map, but it seems as though Ddraig has quite simply sort of saw this aggression coming and has used it to stop that on the side of AmberT. Like, AmberT, wherever he's got aggressive, that off-map has come down, and although it doesn't necessarily pin units in its area of effect, it does almost fully pin them, and that is enough for his own units to get the job done. Lovely shot, though, by the M5 gun. Look at this line of sight here between these two M5 guns, like a 90-degree angle, forcing the AmberT to show side armor. Is going to end up going down to the shot from the M5 gun eventually. +2 still sitting in Ddraig's favor. We have a solid 10 minutes and 51 seconds left on the clock, but 5 minutes and 40 seconds until Ddraig claims victory. IG-18 going to end up going down as well, and AmberT's just butting his head against a brick wall here, it feels like, as he continues to throw men into the grinder, and they are quite simply being dealt with very nicely indeed. Another off-map strike, perfectly placed here for Ddraig. The first one you can see did briefly pin down the Panzer 35 and IG-18, but they recover very quickly. M4A1 now coming into the top side. That is an interesting play for sure. These are the ones you can get in abundance in Phase C. And if there is no significant armor on the top side of the map for AmberT, it could do a lot of work and go a long way. So, nice choice of unit for sure. On this bottom side, though, with this M20, why is it not just fast moving towards the land spawn? Because you can see how much ground there is here. Of course, you do have the Panzerschreck in the way, and Ddraig did see that kill the M5A1, but there's nothing stopping the rifles or the recon from running towards that and revealing it. So that's something that I feel Kerbs misses out on more often than not. It's one thing that Kerbs could definitely do to improve his play, Kerbs being Ddraig. Ddraig does definitely fail to be aggressive sometimes when he's found quite an obvious advantage. So, for example, if you kill like a couple of significant units, like say the S-07 pack or like the Flam Panzer B2s down here, then that's when you know you can get aggressive, because it's less likely that they're going to have other units in the way. It's the same reason that like AmberT, for example, got aggressive in the mid with his Panzer, because he knew that pinning down the M4 and the MGMC meant that his Panzer IV was less likely to be outnumbered, but Ddraig had an ace up his sleeve and had the like shoot around the corner, the M5 gun still in the tree line that wasn't fully pinned down, and therefore AmberT's aggression got punished. But if you don't go for those attacks, then you'll never find out if it was successful or not, and I feel like that's basically a place where Ddraig tends to miss out in his gameplay, but during this game has just played it very methodically and found himself this +2 that has led to an overwhelming lead into this late game. His infantry engagements have been very, very good. They've often been like assisted by the M4s, and it does make the difference. M4A1 now finding a shot onto the SBW204. But yeah, this game has just gone really, really well for Ddraig because his infantry division really, really suits this kind of map. Whereas the Festung, whilst it does have decent infantry, doesn't necessarily have as good fire support to assist it. And when the IG-18s are gone, you're kind of left with like these Flampanzer B2s, you're left with like the B2s and the kind of oddball armor in the early phases, and it is really irritating to work around when you're up against M4s on the side of Ddraig. So, either way, Recon have, well, they're probably going to be found soon enough. Lander shoots on the bottom side trying to recover some ground, but AmberT's had enough, and after 32 minutes and 32 seconds, Ddraig is going to be victorious, taking the second game out of these two games between these players. So, ends up being 1-1, which I think is fair. Ddraig, a very good player, so is AmberT. In the first game, I think Ddraig may have done better if he'd had a better division, but in this one, definitely had one of the best divisions for this map, and definitely made it work. 2,940 kills to 1,970 losses. So the M4s coming out strong. This is exactly what you expect to see from an M4 on this kind of map. Finding the kills onto the infantry and just destroying the enemy fire support so that your infantry can be successful. Same deal with the M5A1s. Like, they excel at this sort of range, and killing an S307 pack with an M5A1 on a long range map would never happen, but on Pointe, definitely able to. M5 gun cleaned up that Panzer IV that got aggressive in the mid. M5 gun takes out Flampanzer B2 and this Tig-E. This was the one that was placed on the bottom side. Loads of lander shoots and going down. You can see the rifles there trading 2 for 1. This is quite common for the 2-star rifle squads, and those can be really, really difficult to get rid of. But just in general, the infantry didn't really matter in the early game. It was all about that M4, and killing those was a priority for AmberT, but just couldn't get the job done. Now, this Hummel definitely paid itself off in the end. It seemed to just, it killed like the artillery early on, and then late game it killed the M1 gun and M5 gun. But the trouble is with this Hummel, and basically its positioning was, like in the sort of mid-game when it came in, it didn't find that many kills. Like, a lot of these kills for the Hummel came late, and by then, it really wasn't doing what it needed to be. Like, in the mid-game when it comes in, that's when you want to use it against like enemy infantry to like just pin them and just allow your infantry to get the advantage. Because one thing I mentioned at the start of the game is it doesn't matter how elite your like the enemy infantry is if it's pinned down, and that's something that the Hummel can do very well because it's quite accurate and it has a lot of HE. So it only takes like one shot on an infantry squad to pin it. And so if you jump from one to the next, you can pin down multiple infantry squads and then open up like a gap for you to push onto the enemy forces. And if you can find a way to deal with the enemy armor, then you're good. But that's probably the main thing that was a struggle for AmberT, was finding a way through the M4s without having to rely too much on Panzerschrecks, because Panzerschrecks would always be found by the abundance of infantry that the 1st Infantry has. So difficult game for AmberT. I think he did pretty well considering the situation. Maybe the use of more bombers could have been something that he chose to do, but seems like personal preference was focusing more on the ground assault and working through things that way. Either way, 1-1 between these two players. Interesting series for sure. I really enjoyed this one. Hopefully you guys did too. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.